I had the SP MIDI with the 950.
Yeah, cause
all that reasonable doubt stuff. Yeah. SP 1200 950.
What's up? You got your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe, cause today we're gonna be talking about the Akai S950. What had happened was, so the year is 1986. Michael Jordan just scored 63 points on Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. Jordan gave Parrish, McHale, and Bird the business so bad that after the game, Larry Bird in an interview said it was like G.O.D. himself in basketball shoes. 1986 was a crazy year, especially in music production. Akai was just kind of getting its groove as far as the products that it was putting out. And they came out with some samplers, some pretty good ones. They came out with the S612 sampler. It was a 6 sample and RAM sampler that used quick discs. Then they evolved to the S700 and then the X7000 keyboard. Akai was on a roll. I don't think people understand how much Akai was promoting at the time. You know the legendary jazz musician Miles Davis? Well, he was being interviewed one time in front of the audience, and he had this real cool leather jacket on. And the interviewer told him, "Hey, that's a nice jacket." And he was like, yeah, thanks, man. This company gave it to me. A company out of Japan, Akai. You ever heard of them? The interviewer was like, no. He was like, yeah, they're doing big things. They're doing big things. This was around 1986 that this happened, so it just goes to show how hard Akai was pushing back then. But Akai in the mid-80s was promoting and marketing and really trying to establish that foot down as the go-to company when it came to sampling. Akai pushed so hard in the mid-80s that they hired Mike McRoberts as their product manager in the US. He was the only product manager for Akai in the US. So he had to go to all the seminars, visit all the dealers, go to all the trade shows and talk about, the Akai equipment. It was really getting crazy, but he was doing his thing. And at that time, Akai put out the S900. It was a 12-bit sampler with 8 voices and had a sample rate from about 7.5 kilohertz to 40 kilohertz. It was a pretty big deal for Akai at the time. Like, remember when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a big deal? You know what I'm saying? The cartoon was running, the toys were out, and for the first day of school, everybody wanted a Ninja Turtles lunchbox. So you're thinking your mom got you the Ninja Turtles lunchbox, because she got you everything else. She got you your stack of pens, your pencils. You even got your pencil case. Remember those? The pencil case? And you just knew that she got you the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles lunchbox. And then you open up the bag, and instead of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles lunchbox, you see a Donnie from New Kids on the Block lunchbox. You're like, oh, okay, this isn't right. To the point when you're walking up the stairs of the cheese bus and you see your Italian bus driver, Louie, and you're trying to, kind of hide your lunchbox, and he decides to get on the speaker and announce, hey, look, kids, he has a New Kids on the Block lunchbox. I guess he's hanging tough, huh? And you're just thinking, oh man, what a way to start the day. In one of the seminars, Mike McRoberts was approached by none other than the Michael Jackson Bad Tour band members. You know what I'm saying? Ricky Lawson, Greg Philliganes, Rory Kaplan. These guys, they approached Mike and they was like, hey, we really like the presentation that you gave, and we're doing this tour with the king of pop himself, Mr. Moonwalk himself, Michael Jackson, and we would like to demonstrate your product to the different places we go to while we're on tour. Let's make a deal. So this was like a dream come true for Mike McRoberts and Akai. So he said, yeah, okay, no problem. And the king of pop and his crew was going tour to tour showing Akai products. This thing ran from about 86 to about 88. But in 1988, Akai finally put all the pieces to the puzzle together, and they put out what was probably their most legendary sampler to date, and that was the Akai S950. You were getting an 8-voice, 12-bit sampler with 8 individual outputs. You were getting an incredible low-pass filter that just gave you a warm, amazing sound. You were getting amp envelopes, auto bend, and MIDI. You were getting 2.25 megabytes of memory. Even though it was 12-bit, the S950 could read 16-bit sample rates from samplers like the S1000. And the big wow, ladies and gentlemen, with the S950 sampler was that, yes, it offered time stretch. You can now change the BPM of any sound without changing the pitch. This was an incredible, monumental addition to the Akai space. Producers was ecstatic. They were losing their mind. A rack sampler that offers time stretch? Producers immediately jumped on the S950 gang. Finally, all drum machine users, SP1200 users, MPC60 users could connect their samplers to the S950 and rock out. The S950 at its lowest bandwidth rate offers you about 63 seconds of sample time, but at a maxed out rate, you can get a little over 3 minutes. This was extremely important to sample producers. Legends like Lord Finesse, making classics like Hip to the Game and Off and On, was called in by Dr. Dre and Mailman. He flew all the way to LA and they was like, okay, bro, what do you need, man? What kind of equipment you need? We got you. He was like, just give me the SP1200 and the Akai S950, and I'm good. Guys like DJ Premier, till this day, still uses the MPC60 and the S950 to make his banging beats. And producers like Ski Beats, who's responsible for a good portion of the classic joints on JayZ's original Reasonable Doubt albums, when you ask him what was his weapons of choice, he'll tell you in a second. It was the SP1200 and the Akai S950. He made all them classic jams. Remember Camp Low, Lucchini? This is it, what? Lucchini pouring from the sky, let's get rich, what? The Jiggy Boss Sugar Dies. He made that joint with the S950. I'm telling you, when the S950 came out, it was these hip-hop producers' secret weapon. It was like, remember when Napster first came out? You know what I'm saying? For those of y'all that was outside, remember how it was like Christmas in July for everyone? I remember chilling at home and my boy like ringing my bell. Ding dong. And I'm like, I'm going to the door and I'm like, oh, hey man, what's up? How's everything? He's like, shh, chill, keep your voice down, Dyreck. I'm like, what's going on? What are you, smuggling heroin to Bolivia? What's the problem? He was like, no, listen, check this out. There's a software out called Napster. Okay, I'm like, is it better than Windows Explorer? Because I can't stand that stuff. He's like, listen, Dyreck, check this out, man. It's a software called Napster, and you can basically download any song you want. I'm like, really? He's like, listen, I downloaded Nas's whole catalog yesterday. I was like, word? How long does it take? He was like, literally, there are songs that you can literally download in 20 seconds. I was like, oh my gosh. I started downloading everybody's catalog. I started downloading the catalogs, the instrumentals. I downloaded the whole Beatles catalog just to find out what's with these guys. Why does everybody love them? You know what I mean? I started downloading everything you can imagine. I had so many unreleased rap songs. I had Biggie unreleased rap song, Tupac unreleased rap song. I just went Napster crazy. MP3 files was everywhere. So the workflow of the 950 is pretty simple. If you have all your chord connections set up, you press the record button. It asks you to name your sample. You name your sample, press enter, then click the next page button. Then it asks you to name your program. You name your program. Click the next page button again. It asks you what's going to be your audio source. Is it going to be analog input or phono? You choose your audio source. It asks you what bandwidth do you want to do. Do you want to do 3,000 bandwidth or all the way up to 19,200 bandwidth? The lower the bandwidth, the more gritty your track will sound. The higher the bandwidth, the more cleaner it will sound. Then you choose the recording time as far as how many seconds you want to record. Click the next button, and then you choose the pitch of the sound that's going to be recorded. And then you have a start with page where it asks you, do you want to start with any key, a foot switch, or like the threshold of an audio level? So let's say if you wanted to start with a threshold, meaning like whenever you play your sample, when it hits a certain point, it'll start recording. You set it up like that. You play the sample. It'll start recording on the threshold. It'll stop when it's finished recording, decide whether or not you want to keep it or not. And if you keep it, you could push the PB button, that means for playback, and start playing back your sample and just go through the settings and modify it more if you have to. Producers loved the S950. It was the staple of the sound of that time. You gotta remember, hearing all them tracks at the time, like Dead Presidents by JayZ, hearing the bass line on that, or even a lot of like Ski Beats' early work, you'd hear this warm, beautiful bass line every time his beat is playing. He couldn't really play bass, so he would just low filter the sample and let it run. And if you really think about it, that technique was a staple in hip hop back then. That's what made them joints just dope. If you was an MC and that low filter bass came in, bro, you grabbed the microphone and just got busy. With products like the S950, producers were now taking charge of their careers. The record labels would be holding secret meetings to see how they can cheat the artists out of more money. And producers would just kick down the doors, bang, and just start demanding their money. The record label guys would be in a frenzy. They would run around the meeting like chickens with their heads cut off. And they had no choice but to give the hip-hop producers what they wanted. Now, when the Akai S950 came out, it was about $1,500. Not a bad price. Artists from all over the world actually purchased the S950. If you was a working producer and you realized what this unit could do for you, you purchased it. And a lot of artists across all genres purchased the S950. It was just something special about the machine. It had this kind of commanding, warm, pure sound. Like some of the samplers nowadays, you can't really get a sound like you could on the S950. So yeah, that's the Akai S950. What had happened was... So this is your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to go down low in the description and get that new Soundmaster sample pack, where you're getting the incredible sounds for your production. And you also get a bonus how to play the keyboard video. Can you believe it? No longer do you have to walk around music stores afraid of the keyboard. No longer do you have to look at it and it's something like a confusing Rubik's Cube. Now you can play the keyboard with confidence and ease. When your relatives stop by and they're like, "Hey John, I didn't know you could play piano." You just say, "Yeah, you know, I'm kind of self-taught. I could do a little something." So this is your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe. And I'm signing off.